Nana Brahma. It was released in 1985 on Indipop Records, and it was Sheila's fourth solo album after leaving Monsoon. We have a translation of Nana Brahma, in brackets, Sound is God, and it was given to us by Dr. Nanda Kumar at the Bhavan Cultural Centre in West Kensington, London. I'd met with his father, Maturji, in 1981 when I'd gone to them looking for some Indian musicians, and he got it straight away. He understood what we were trying to do, and so much so that they let us rehearse there. And there was the only live performance Monsoon ever did was in 1981 when we got the EP, and it was on Indian Independence Day, so very fitting. And the Bhavan put on regular concerts and dance performances, top Hindustani and Carnatic artists and musicians, and we were there practically every week, and there was so much for us to learn and hone up and get curious about, and they were in a perfect position. They had a lot of respect, and in India particularly, the really top musicians would always find a home there, and they were there for us to chat to and ask all our questions. So it really was invaluable. For the last phase of these four albums on Indipop, Sheila always wanted a new challenge, as I was saying before. Well, how about a 27-minute track, one side of an album, that explores through theme and variation, rag, jog, and summarises the vocal techniques that she'd been experimenting and developing during the previous three albums. Also, from Martin and I's point of view, we could draw on concepts from prog rock, of which we're both fans, Genesis, Yes, etc., and those kind of long tracks, the theme and variation. And it seemed as though world music had a lot to say and really suited these extended ideas. Whether it's because, in our case, the Asian music was drone based, I don't know, but that's every single track that we recorded on Indipop was drone-based, fixed rag, and all the explorations that come from that in the various styles. It was something that gave immediately a character to each of the recordings, and Sheila's Real World albums continued that with solo voice and drone. For instance, the rag of Ever So Lonely, which is 5 notes, you could play that on a piano and it would still sound Indian. And I think that's where we scored with Monsoon and then Sheila's albums, because whether they were sung or played, they weren't just Asian fusion, they were Asian fusion in the writing. It wasn't just sitar and guitar and drums and tabla, which was great, nothing wrong with that. But even when you're trying to look at a different perspective or draw in a different influence, maybe Eastern European or Celtic or Arabic, or even on Quiet One we'd used the gamelan. All those instrumentally would make it sound Eastern, but it's in the writing, I think, as opposed to the 60s attempts, and there's some brilliant stuff, but they were kind of just doing an album or an odd few tracks in that direction, whereas we were committed, that was all we did, and that was the root, the Indian influence. Even the Ganges Orchestra, which was pretty infamous, shares the same basic direction. They just happen to generally be adding a beat and cyclic riff. So what it means is that you've got a whole catalogue there of stuff that's quite distinctive, and I'm really proud of that. And from a writing point of view, everything was a challenge, because a lot of Western melodies are based on play a few chords, and the melody comes from the difference between those two chords. There's nothing like that. It was a challenge, and it was really, you had to be really quite disciplined within this style. because we've become so good at writing in this style and adding the instrumental fusion on top, when Sheila made her solo voice and drone albums for Real World, she was so skilled and rehearsed that the fusion remained, but uniquely in the vocal line only. So it's a bit like you can hear on some of those tracks that she'd go up in a folk style, and then she'd come down in an Islamic in different kind of key, different tone, voice tone, and it was unique to Sheila, really, which is quite difficult to be in a music business that seems to have been everywhere and explored everything already. So just like Monsoon and the first 5 albums on Indipop were an evolutionary leap, Sheila made another going into those Real World albums because it was just voice and drone. In some circles, Sheila gets recognition for this enormous achievement. Well, I think it's an enormous achievement. And she didn't just develop one style. She waited and then moved on to the next one. And it's really, I think, to do with her willingness to experiment and embrace change. And Bluebird magazine said of her, one of the most beautiful voices on earth. And I agree. Like classical Indian musics, we started out using the tambura to state the drone, e.g. the root, the fifth and the octave, playing continuously, and it gives a very dreamy, flowing effect, and quite soon we started layering these acoustic drones, which just boost the harmonics and add to the richness. Also using the lower registers, like sung bass notes and didgeridoo and bagpipes and the low end of a hurdy-gurdy and the piano with the loud pedal held down, along with other atmospheric sounds like bells, white noise. So I prepared some of the 24 tracks to go into the studio with, because normally when we went into the mixing studio, the 24 track would be lying there unused, and we brought in our 8 track to mix from. So on Not a Brahma, this was a bit of a change. So we've got the 8 tracks running of all the tracks, and then we've got the 2-inch full of all these atmospheric drones. So it was quite an achievement. We'd be working away, all hands pushing the faders, someone calling out, this is coming up, and so we did it in 2 parts, this 27-minute track, because if you notice, there's one point where there's no sound, just for a split second, and so we did it in 2 halves. I would say that you could feel, I think, in the same way as you feel the intention of an artist or a musician or a singer, you can feel the live feelness, and it was obviously not digital at that point. There were no automated faders, and so it really was the tension of, are we going to get it right? Guys, we've got to pull it out this time, and all that kind of stuff. Somehow you feel that, and it's a bit more like an event, as well as all the music. I know it's getting into small worlds, but making music is already pretty cosmic when you think deeply about it. And now it adds into that the roots of Indian music, where they've somehow worked out that Brahma kick-started the universe by singing Om in the key of C sharp. So in the beginning was the word, and the word was Om.